was a storm, but it came and went, and now the sun is out. What I'm about to talk about, there's no plan, there's no script, and it's a very personal, very serious topic that I think doesn't just affect me, it affects a lot of people. For a long time, this kind of thing that I'm about to talk about can really get me on some kind of list. And if I'm not already on some kind of list, just based on like my Facebook posts alone from the last 7 years, I've said some extreme things. I might have what can be considered some extreme beliefs. None of them being any form of racism or bigotry or things of that nature. When I talk about this, I'm only talking about my own head and what's going on up here. After years of therapy, I have come to a place that is much better than it was 10 years ago. Hell, even only 6 or 5 years ago. A person can grow within the span of 10 years a lot. A person can grow a lot within the span of 5 years. And I've always struggled with depression and post-traumatic events. I wouldn't say that I have PTSD. I might have symptoms that can be associated with PTSD, but I don't necessarily have PTSD. At least, as far as I know, I haven't been diagnosed with it. I am somewhat dissociative in the symptoms I have. The reason I'm talking about this kind of mental health aspect of everything is because I think it feeds into some of my political beliefs, or some of my political beliefs might feed into my depression or trauma or extreme reactions to certain things that I see in the news. And I think that can kind of be true for anyone. Anybody who watches the news close enough or for long enough will eventually grow some sort of, let's call it shock or trauma from the things they have to learn about what goes on in our world on a day-to-day basis. If you pay attention to things as much as I do, no wonder I would seem cynical or even pessimistic or nihilistic to some degree. I wouldn't technically call myself a nihilist, but I might have some nihilistic philosophies or ways of thinking. But I'm not necessarily a nihilist. I think everything in our world has the potential to get better, to grow. But oftentimes, I don't really think it will. Believing in the potential of something happening and believing that it will happen are two different things. I also am not sure if I would even call myself an optimist. I would like to be an optimist. I would like to have a mindset where I feel like, hey, things are probably always going to get better. At least for me. But what I believe, hey, things are probably always going to get better for the world in general. I even have session information after, about 6 years of therapy can really go a long way for a person. And I've had my fair share of therapy. I've also experienced my fair share of self-harm behaviors. But most of the time, I think that my self-harm was a way in which I could cope without externalizing this inner violence that I have. And when I say inner violence, I'm being very specific about exactly what it is, or at least I'm trying to articulate specificity. When I watch the news, when I see politicians and people and wealth hoarders and billionaires and the uber wealthy in the military industrial complex doing things that can get most people like me, in jail or worse. It fills me with this type of anger, this resentment, this hate, and this rage that can sometimes be a lot to contain. It takes a lot of strength, I believe, to contain violence. And I carry this violence in me every day, I think. In general, I'm a nice person. I help my friends. I'm nice to people I pass on the street. I can carry small talk, conversation. In public, can appear somewhat normal and peaceful. And I think in general, I am a peaceful person, at least towards others. But internally, I struggle with violent thoughts and disturbing thoughts and thoughts that if you necessarily verbalize them to other people, or at least say, hey, for some reason I'm thinking this right now, might be looked at as crazy or scary, or at least intimidating to some degree. And my intention is not necessarily to be intimidating. I think if we don't talk about our inner violence and our disturbing thoughts, then how are we ever going to truly get past it? Or how are we ever going to truly determine the source of why we have these violent thoughts, or this mindset of rage? I don't think very many people, at least percentage-wise, have my brand of inner turmoil. But that could be said for everyone. Every single human being is a unique person with their own experiences and perspectives, which forms who they are. I used to genuinely, and here it comes, I used to genuinely have thoughts and desires, not necessarily a plan or even the resources to carry out such an objective, but a wish or a desire to go to people of power, people of significant power, leaders of the world, people like presidents, people like, Mr. DT, or other people in places of power and leadership, in government mostly. And I wish I could take out this physical aggression that I have the desire to do, to inflict on people that I view as someone who is deserving. And then you have to ask the question, well, why do I think this person is deserving of my inner violence? And I think, from a moral standpoint, from a philosophical perspective, that I believe they deserve it because of the harm they've inflicted on others that can be factually, objectively proven. Not some conspiracy, not some reptiles or breeding armies of whoever the fuck And these reptiles actually happen to be hidden in our government. They happen to be Obama, or they happen to be Hillary, or whatever. Stupid fucking conspiracy theories. No. I'm talking about real life, objectively proven facts that point towards people in our government, people like Trump, Hillary, Obama, George Bush, Bill Kristol, Dick Cheney, people who should be in The Hague, people who should be in The Hague, people who have committed war crimes, people who have committed unspeakable acts of suffering and violence towards other people. I feel this, at least used to, feel this want and desire to go out there and send a message, a very public, a very violent message. Will I do that today? Probably not. I don't have the urge to do that, or really the want to do that. Should I ever be put in a circumstance or a situation where there are no repercussions, in a hypothetical scenario that would never happen in a 1,000 years, probably. And if I had the opportunity to inflict such violence and physical harm on a person like, you know, a former president of it, whoever it be, that I viewed as someone who has caused a significant amount of suffering, which can be factually proven based on their actions in leadership and government, then yes, I probably would in that hypothetical scenario. Nowadays, I really don't have the desire to do that. And I won't say desire, I'll say urge or want. Because in a way, it is desirable to me to inflict said harm on people who have done things to other people which can be considered, by nature, violent. We have in this country the death penalty for odious, heinous crimes that citizens sometimes commit on other citizens. Child kidnappers, child rape, sometimes child rape is not taken as seriously as child murder, unfortunately. But, child killers, people who are serial killers, who hunt with efficiency, and, their victims go missing for years, their skeletons turn up, and it turns out these people were subjected to torturous, horrible moments before the end of their life. And they had done nothing to this person who would have perpetuated this against them. Now, there's something to be said for that type of society when you'll be given the death penalty because of your murder, but you won't be given the death penalty because of your murder if you're a billionaire or a multimillionaire or a president or a senator, or hey, even a Supreme Court member. Because how about we take an example for current affairs? Roe v. Wade, the Supreme Court wants to overturn, or is going to overturn, because most of the judges, it's unanimous, they want to make abortion a states' rights issue. The federal government is supposed to exist to have these blanket laws that cover, multiple states. That says, hey, this is a crime if you do X, or you are not allowed to do X or Y or Z or whatever. We're supposed to have the federal government for that reason. But the Supreme Court thinks that the federal government has no place in telling states that they're not allowed to ban abortion. What happens when you do ban abortion? Let's think about it. Women end up having children that they don't want, which means that they are subjected to 9 months of unwanted agony and hours of much more painful agony to give birth to a child that they did not want. Put yourself in the place of the child. You know, these pro-lifers want to say that I care about life and we need to save the babies and I love children and I love the babies. And then put yourself in the place of a child that is unwanted. Is it good? Is it good for the mental health of the child to be born from a parent and to be raised by a parent that didn't want them to begin with? I would say that forcing women to carry every single pregnancy that they have, even if it's dangerous to their health, which they would die in those cases. If it's an ectopic pregnancy, they will die. That would just hurt the mental well-being, the human development of the children who were born to parents who didn't want them. You can't say you care about others, or you cannot say that you actually even care about the child. You can't say that you care about the unborn when you want to force the unwanted pregnancy on the woman. And then you'd say, well, put it up for adoption and blah, blah, blah. How many unwanted kids are there already? When someone is ready to have a child, they're ready to have a child, and they should have the right to have that child. When you force someone to have children, is it not akin to some form of rape? Because even if someone like Brett Kavanaugh didn't actually rape, her name is escaping me, but Brett Kavanaugh, look it up. Brett Kavanaugh was taken to court over the allegations that she had against him. I believe Brett Kavanaugh is a rapist. Even if he didn't actually rape her, or rape any woman physically for that matter, he is metaphorically raping every woman that the reversal of Roe v. Wade affects. I think a mass rapist who, by some measure, kills women with his decision in government. I believe Brett Kavanaugh deserves to be raped to death. That's what I think he deserves. Am I saying I'm actually going to rape Brett Kavanaugh to death? No. But more to the original point. It's people like Brett Kavanaugh and others that force their beliefs like this on other people. And when their beliefs become harmful, a detriment to the health and safety of other people, I'm sorry, but this want or desire to inflict a type of harm on these individuals that have done these things and committed this crime against others, I think they deserve to be punished in a very uncomfortable fashion. And if you want to know more about why I think this, I mean, hell, we can just we can look at my diagnosis. I mean, DSM diagnosis. I mean, hell, I've got major depressive disorder, recurrent episode, currently mild. You know, I've got social anxiety disorder, social phobia, and I have other specified trauma and stressor related disorder with dissociative symptoms. So I have an alter. I have another part of my personality that is currently fractured from the whole of my personality. The whole. And this other personality is everything that I am not. The person sitting talking to you right now is the antithesis of this other personality of mine. And I wasn't talking about him before when I say I have this desire to inflict violence against people who have inflicted violence towards the innocent. No. That's me. That's the person who's talking to you now. This other fraction of my personality, which can at times be very potent and strong, and if left unchecked, could potentially take over. This other fraction of my personality, of my mind, of my fucking brain, my traumatized brain, is everything I hate. Someone who can be psychologically and emotionally abusive and manipulative. And someone who possibly would not just defend themselves with aggressive acts of violence, but as someone who would inflict violence without having been properly prompted to do said violence. This is something I'm willing to talk about more in the future, and there's a lot to talk about. I mean, hell, if you want to talk about my suicidal ideation, or biomedical conditions, or complications, or hell, if you want to talk about my cultural accommodations, or lifestyle beliefs, then it's something I'm interested in talking about in the future. But for now, I think it's time for me to go eat some tofu, because I'm a soy boy vegan who needs to keep that protein in check, baby. So that I can continue to donate, so that I won't be deferred for any stupid fucking reason, so that I can, make money. Because I get paid for donating. And I've been recording rants and ramblings on the way home after donating, because it's a 5-mile walk. And with spring coming around and summer just around the corner, yeah, I'm gonna have to walk more, because I gotta stay in shape, baby. Self-care routine. That's what it's about. You gotta take care of yourself. And I recommend everyone have a self-care routine. You know, do what makes you feel good. Take a shower if that makes you feel good. Eat a pot of beans if that makes you feel good. Just don't eat too much to the point to where you throw up, but do what makes you feel good. Hopefully, not at the expense of others, be it another human being or an innocent animal that hasn't really hurt you or deserves to be hurt in any way, especially if you can take care of yourself without having the need to harm any other kind of form of life.